This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast. I have a very special guest on the show. I have Chandell or Shandiggy. Great to have you on the show, sir.
Yes, indeed. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here live in Intelligent Office. They're doing some phenomenal things where we get the opportunity to do a podcast interview here and learn a little bit more about Chandell, or Shandiggy, I should say, and all those awesome things. But I guess to kind of kick everything off, I wanted to hear a little bit more about you, your story. We'll let you get started with all your awesome work.
Okay. So just basically about what I do. And all right. So right now, I am a substance abuse and mental health counselor. I am now in the Northern Virginia area, but I've started out in Philadelphia. That's where I'm from. So I've worked in several different capacities there. I worked as a 911 dispatcher in Philadelphia. I've worked with the kids in school, tutoring and things of that nature. Then I worked with the delinquents in probation. And I've worked in New Jersey with state-appointed youth who were, it was in a hospital, but it was a secured facility inside of a hospital. So I've done all that work for many years. I got into substance abuse counseling because I came up in the 80s. And I knew so many people, family members, friends, that were all of this and all of that. And then when crack came, it was like a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
And, the North Philly neighborhood that I lived in was very highly populated. And then it just was abandoned. So, and it's never came back.
Right.
So, I always heard people say, you do crack once and you always get hooked. So I said, I want to not try it.
Right,
I want to get in here to see what I can do.
To combat it, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my journey has taken me, all over New Jersey, Philly, Maryland, DC. Now I'm here in Northern Virginia, and I love it here. I teach full time, doing substance abuse counseling, and I run my private practice. I have outpatient practice where I do mental health and substance abuse counseling here in Virginia.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I, obviously, I think even I wasn't in the area at the time, but I think I even heard, horrible stories just about what happened at DC, and just so I think it happened all across the country in so many different places. So I appreciate the work that you do, because I think that first of all, if there's not the awareness around it, that helps out a lot of what it can do. But I think even more, you need the people that are actually combating it and doing all those things to make the world a better place.
Yes, indeed. So every little bit counts.
Yeah.
So in this field, there isn't a lot of help, even though it appears to be. So I always encourage people to start up whatever you can start up, because wherever we can help, it's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you say there's not a lot of help, it's not a lot of resources for people to reach out to, or it's not awareness, or?
I would say both.
Okay.
It's a lot of myths, and even when people do have insurance, and they go get the help.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a 30-day program. They go get the help. They only get approved for 5 days.
Really?
So it's like, wow, what are you really doing?
Right.
So the stuff that is out there, it needs to be more.
Yeah.
And what it is, this is a capitalistic society, whether we like it or not. Helping people and with mental health and on substances isn't money.
Right.
It's putting out money. So they just put it to the wayside, and then you get more of what's out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely sorry to hear that. I appreciate you tremendously, obviously, in the work that you do, but bringing light to that. I think that we sometimes forget. I say we forget about this a lot of times in business, that we forget about that human side, and we sometimes forget, sadly, about the human side of life and what that means. Not, it may not be quote unquote dollar maker, quote unquote, today, but the detriment that it does to the community, to the talent, to the gifts, to the opportunities that we have within the people, that's really the saddest part of us being robbed of that by not putting more awareness and, energy and whatever we have into those situations.
It's very true. And a lot, it's funny. When I go to networking events,
Right.
Everybody's there. They're realtors, they're commercial realtors, all these big business people.
Right.
And they're talking to me. They said, what do you do? I do counseling. They're like, oh. And go right back to the, I'm like, wow. So
yeah,
it's still like taboo. So, and a lot of people, even when I teach, they're like, "It's no money in this field. It's no money in this field."
Right.
I'm like, well, that's a lie.
Right.
But why do we think that? Because it's not promoted as something that a career that people want to take.
Right. And I'm curious, like especially during the pandemic, I feel like there's been more talk around mental awareness, but that might just be, you never know, you never check in numbers to actually see. Has it opened up more of a conversation or awareness from people, individuals, organizations? Have you seen that?
I am hearing a little buzz.
Okay.
So I would say more so people who have been affected directly by it are stepping up because can I be bad for a minute?
Go for it.
I don't call it the pandemic.
Go for it.
I call it the plandemic.
Okay.
So when the pandemic happened, it hit us by storm. And the real is it live in Memorex, people had to stand up. And a lot of people were not prepared to stay in a house. They didn't know what to do. They ate all of their meals outside. They didn't know how to cook. They didn't do. So people were losing it during that time. Still haven't come back. So I do see a lot of that there, but I do see a lot of companies who are interested in doing more.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to name them, but some major companies are at least saying they want more about diversity, equity, inclusion. They want more about addiction.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been hearing some of that.
Yeah, well, that's somewhat promising to kind of hear. It's so interesting because I feel like at the heart of entrepreneurship, it's all about solving problems, and the number of people that I imagine that are going through. And maybe because it's quote unquote maybe behind closed doors and it's not aware, there's not as much awareness around it. Maybe that's part of it. But I feel like, when you mentioned that the people say that there's no money, to me, that's a tremendous opportunity. If so many people are dealing with that to be able to solve that problem. So I commend you for being able to do that and devote your time, energy, and resources to that.
Oh yeah. And thanks. But it's funny. This doesn't even feel like a job to me. I was working Monday through Sunday, every day. Now Saturday and Friday I would do a couple hours. Wasn't all that. I was working Monday through Sunday.
Right.
Then so a couple things happened with my mother, so I stopped Friday and Saturday so I can chill with her or make sure she was okay.
Right.
But I come to this and do this every single day, and I'm not worn out at the end of the day. Now some of the stories are phenomenal. And I'm just saying, whoa, sometimes when people unload these things, I have to process it. But I mean, some horrific things when you hear that, but I'm just honored to be able to be in that capacity to help.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely appreciate you for doing that. So I know you mentioned, and the quote kind of came to mind is find something you love to do. You never work a day in your life. What does it look like for people that might be listening to this, that might know somebody or need help themselves? Like, how do you help serve those clients? I know you mentioned the teaching and the outpatient aspect, but like how and what ways do you serve your clients?
I mean, how do I serve my clients when they get here?
Yeah, like what that looks like, or when should they know to call or call somebody?
Definitely, whenever you're thinking about it, you pick up that phone and call.
Okay.
So with me, I will talk to people who call and just have questions. Okay. You don't necessarily have to come on and sign on and be my client.
Right.
But I do speak with clients who have questions because I want them to get the right information.
Right.
And I also let them know if you have any questions, call back and ask for me. Here's my email, whatever.
Right.
So I like doing that. But once they come in, I'm building a rapport with them from the beginning. If I answer the phone, so I have a couple staff that answers. If I get the phone, I'm making sure I give the correct information.
Right.
And I ask specific questions to get them on track.
Okay.
So they don't get lost. So I ask specific questions for that, but I'm building a rapport. When they get here, again, it's more rapport building. No shame, blaming. I think I have a little flavor, so I bring that to the table. My personality, and I've had several of them tell me, "Yeah, you have a big personality." I'm like, "Thanks." So I use that, and then we get down to the nitty gritty.
Okay. And those could be people that are going through substance issues or have that, or even people that have mental health issues or anything in between?
I'm getting them all.
Are you? Okay.
All. Now, this is a funny thing. When it comes down to substance abuse, a lot of old school substance abuse counselors, just you're an addict. You're always going. I don't use that term. I don't call people addicts.
Okay.
Even if you call yourself one, I don't.
Right. Words have power.
Huh?
Words have power.
Hell yeah. So I don't use those terms. So I just forgot your question.
No, just saying if people that have mental health and then also substance abuse, are you catering to them all?
I cater to them all because at the root of it, it is mental health. So if I do the substances, I'm covering up my feelings of abandonment, rape, divorce, low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
It's still the mental health issues, but substances,
A byproduct of it.
exactly, help you forget or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I think that's the bottom line, are those mental health issues. So they go hand in hand.
Yeah, and I've heard that people have said that it's I don't know if it's an epidemic within itself, mental health, and not being addressed, not being talked about, and let alone treated.
Yeah, and I've had the pleasure of having so many people here from around the globe.
Okay.
And I must say, it's been a lot of information directed towards this kind of being a European and especially United States thing.
Okay.
You get these people from other countries, they like, who? Depression? What's that?
Right.
Panic attacks? What are you talking about?
Right.
Bipolar? What? Huh? Clueless.
Right.
So I think a lot of it here gets stigmatized. We diagnosing everything.
Right.
Everything. So I think it's a little extra with that. Now I'm into the nutrition as well.
Okay.
So I have a health coach certificate as well, and I'm going for the nutrition coaching. But that has a major impact as well of what we're eating. We're eating all this genetically modified food, and now we wonder why these kids are not. Look what we're feeding them.
Right.
So that has a major part to it. I even had a guy came here from Central America, and he said, "Listen, I could look right at a fruit and tell you if it's genetically modified."
Mm.
And I called him one. I brought it. I brought 2 different ones in.
Yeah.
Bam. And one of the things was if it's too shiny and polished and clean, it's not real.
That makes sense.
It's supposed to be rugged and rough looking and whatever the case may be with the seed inside of it.
Right.
So, I think that's the big part. So I'll talk about nutrition, life planning, goals, and you start shaping it up in one area and it shapens up in others. Yeah.
I almost wonder, do you feel like that's part of what I call your secret sauce, the thing you feel kind of sets you or the organization part that makes it unique? Is it that kind of, for lack of a better term, holistic view that you have on, I think sometimes we could think mental health is here, health is here, fitness is here, but they're all part of that human experience. So I feel like that is something you have a great perspective on.
Most definitely. They're all tied in. And I always tell people, let's say if you don't have money or have money, the reason is your emotional attachment to it. So let's address that emotion, then we can start solving other problems.
Right.
A lot of us are caught up into whatever comes out on that TV, I have to get it and buy it.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why we don't have it.
Right.
Another reason, when you look to globally, the United States, only place that I know of that has hoarders. And it's because we're consume, right. consume, and then you get consumed by consuming.
Right.
So I think that's another issue as well.
Right.
So I think hoarders are a reflection of people on substances. The way that house look is the way that person on drug head looks. Stuff cluttered all over the place. So it's the same. Even the 600 and plus people, the same difference.
Yeah.
Every corner is a fast food, so it's very easy for me to eat poorly because that's what's there. Then after the pandemic, all of the prices went skyrocketing.
Right.
Then Uber was out. Uber was sounding fine. After that, prices went sky high. The little man who used to do deliveries at places, they got thrown out of the way because now you do Uber Eats and pay this. So we get so used to allegedly getting with the times and then we lose ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I feel like the overall essence of like the who we are as human, like even the community feel and just looking after one another and all those things. But I appreciate you giving that visual because I think sometimes, and I don't know if you probably have more awareness of this around substances or people that are dealing with those things. You sometimes don't have the visual that's attached to it. So I love that visual you talked about when you talked about the hoarder having all this stuff. The same thing is happening in many different ways for people that are dealing with certain issues and things that are happening. So I think having that visual helps out as far as people hopefully understanding a lot more of like what's happening.
Oh, most definitely. And I tell my students to watch Hoarders and 600-Pound Life.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have difficulty, like, oh, because it is. Some days I could watch Hoarders, and the other days I'm like, knock it off.
Right.
But when you come down, it's a mental health issue, and it has to do with your emotion and what you are tapping into.
Yeah, how you're dealing with.
Same thing with the overeating.
Yeah.
The same thing with the substances.
Right.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
I don't even call this food that we call food. I don't call it food.
Right.
It's dead animals, and it's processed and genetically modified junk.
Yeah.
So that to me is a substance.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why it's so powerful that you get that awareness around, what it is that people may not even realize that that's not food, may not realize like all these different things. So I love that you're bringing awareness to that. So for clients, you're able to work with anybody anywhere. Is it just in this Northern Virginia area?
No. So yeah, we could do online. Okay. Of course, it's I do the health coaching and I do counseling. So there are some rules. Okay. But they're finally, after the pandemic, they're finally giving reciprocity. If you are licensed in one state, that you can be licensed in other. And now it's around 20 states that have joined on to that interstate compact. So it's a lot of times we can do online. Now, I don't particularly like doing substance abuse counseling online.
Okay.
Because there's really no accountability.
Right.
If you come in and I'm looking at you and then I drug test you,
right.
And it's not to get you in trouble, but it's just everybody being accountable and saying, hey, you said X, Y, and Z, but what's going on here?
Yeah.
So it's nothing like the real thing.
Yeah.
I love technology, but I love
the face-to-face.
Face-to-face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. I appreciate you clarifying just in case anybody's listening to this, depending on where you are, how best to reach out. I wanted to switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
And I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or even a habit that you have. But what's something you think makes you more effective and efficient?
Good question. I like being put on my toes like that. I will say I'm always learning. Always. So I'm always reading. Mm-hmm. I don't read. I've been studying my own research since the 80s.
Okay.
So, in school they beat me over the head with Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. And in the first and second grade, I was saying, is there anybody else besides Martin Luther King? Uh-huh. So that's all they gave us.
Right.
So I did my own research. So I still research. I'm like Dora the Explorer. I formally will go to school and research on my own. So, but on my own is where I found the most information.
Right.
So, I do that and I never say I've seen it all and done it all. Mm-hmm. So every day is a new day and I learn from my clients. Mm-hmm. So it's not me, I'm so-and-so, it's about a community thing and learning and listening. So, I really, I say I would hold those things to my special remedy or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that's CEO hack. Yeah, it's huge to have that curiosity and I'll say insatiable curiosity where you're always learning, you're always trying to learn more. And you don't have that ego that gets in the way because I think a lot of times when you have that ego that gets in the way, you say, I've learned all this, so I know everything. But in reality, you're always able to learn more. You're always able to get a different perspective. You're always able to have a different conversation. So I love that fuels a lot of what you do. And I think that helps out as far as you making those connections with your clients because you feel like you're talking to somebody that understands you, has that knowledge, but understands you and is actually listening. I think when you have that ego get in the way, a lot of times you're not listening. You're just saying you need to do X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for people. It just doesn't. So I am an untraditional type of counselor because, I'm typically not wearing hard-bottom shoes and suits and speaking the Queen's English, and I'm not doing all that. I might slip up and use a profanity. I might say, "Yo, what's up?" Because it's just being real.
Yeah.
So, and it works for me. For some people, it may not work.
Yeah.
And that's fine as well.
Yeah. Well, I think it definitely, anytime you're talking about real issues or real things, you need real people. So I appreciate you for being that and showing that in so many different ways. What would you consider to be what I call a CEO nugget? This is a little bit more word of wisdom or piece of advice. I like to say it might be one of the organizations that you would give advice to, or if you were to hop into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Don't be afraid. Get into it early. The earlier, the better. Network. You want to network because you don't want to become stagnant, and you don't want to become like a silo. And, so you need other people around you. I had a friend call me the other day for a high-powered job she was interviewing for. So she was like, give me some information on this because I'm not too skilled on that.
Right.
And she was like, wow, you've been saying that. I'm like, yes. But, we always go by what the industry says and what the big companies are saying.
Yeah.
Look, they're there for money. So
right.
I'm saying here are the issues that are revolutionary. Let's address them.
Right.
So I would say those are nuggets. Definitely network and have it's like having a little army of people you could go to when there's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so powerful. I think Einstein said that you can see so much further by standing on the shoulders of giants. But if you don't have any giants around you, if you're not talking to giants, you're not having those conversations, then how are you going to see further? How are you going to be able to have and tap into those conversations, the expertise, the knowledge, experiences of people other than have those people that you're connecting with?
Most definitely. Yeah, so we have to do it. And when you're doing this networking, I would say don't always look for somebody who looks and sounds and acts and talks like you. You have to go outside of that comfort zone and get another frame of reference.
Right.
So
I appreciate you sharing that because I think that, I think there's even been like psychological books that talk about, why we sometimes attract to people that sound the same, look the same, talk the same. But in reality, that's not creating, diversity in many different ways. But also, it's not allowing us to sharpen the saw because the problems of tomorrow are going to require kind of holistic. I'm going to go back to that word, holistic ways to look at the problems, holistic ways to address the issues. And if we don't have those varied conversations, experiences, people that we can lean on, then we're only going to be solving that siloed problem potentially. And it's not going to, each of the problems are starting to overlap. It's not one thing as we've been talking about, it's so many different things. So if you look at it from one vantage point, it's not going to solve the overall issue.
Right. Yeah. So those are revolutionary when you're looking forward of saying solve a problem now, but also how do I set up something to solve down the pike?
Right.
Because it's a lot of implications going on, just in the United States and across the world right now. How do we set these up to possibly address this in 10 years?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's so powerful to be able to do that. So now I want to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. Our goal is to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So Chandell, what does being a CEO mean to you?
A CEO for me is it's a lot of basic stuff. Nothing like highly educated but you have to have vision. You have to have some entrepreneur mannerisms and ways about you. So meaning risk taking, and you have to be able to diversify and expand because you don't want to be a one trick pony. So that's where the networking comes in at and planning and being that visionary.
Yeah.
So, that's, I would say where I'm at. I'm in the process of that now, and expanding and freeing myself from some daily duty so I can do more
Yeah.
in other places.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I really love that word expand, because I think that anytime you have like a vision, and expansion can mean so many different things. It could be bringing on people. It could be having different conversations to make you look at things differently, to talk about and look at those problems in a different and unique way. And I think we only do that. We only expand by, having those different conversations, by thinking about things creatively, coming up with solutions. But that's ultimately what's going to lead us to where the vision is, because I think so many times when we have a vision, we think we just step and roll into it.
Right.
But in reality, a lot of times you have to expand into whatever that vision is, and that requires us to kind of get out of our comfort zone to do different things.
Most definitely. Yeah. And I've always been that way, but sometimes when you're, doing the day to day and you don't have any help.
Yeah.
So I have some help. I want more.
Yeah.
But I have some help, but I have to step back and, let the others come in. So that has been happening for me. So I'm able to start spreading out and doing some other things, because this brain never stops. Never stops. I'm talking when I'm getting ready for it, I'm like, I got to do this and do that. All right. I still got to get to that book. Yeah. So it's always
going
on the go.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely something that's needed, as we kind of talked about in the beginning. There's more hands that are needed. There's more brains. There's more feet. Whatever you can do, there's more that's needed. So I love that, you've been able to kind of, expand, including, of course, get that opportunity to be here today. So obviously appreciate your time.
Yes, indeed.
And what I want to do now is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best people can get a hold of you, find out about all the awesome things your team are working on.
Awesome. One thing I'd just like to say is about the stigma with mental health, stigma with substance abuse. It's not saying the person is malfunctioned or something is wrong with their brain or they're crazy. None of those terms. We have to look at addiction and mental health in a different way. So a lot of things that we're doing day to day does affect us very similar to drugs, gambling. Somebody just told me he worked at MGM, 4 a.m. to 12 in the afternoon. And I said, wow, I didn't know they were open all, I'm from Philly, but AC was all night, but I'm like, that's just one casino. I didn't know they were open all night. She said, and the people sit there and don't want to lose their seat. So they wear Pampers.
Oh, wow.
And do number 1 and number 2 and sit there and keep gambling.
Wow.
So I'm just saying it's more than just substances.
Right.
So we want to take that stigma away. And I think, being able to go see coaches, like life coaches, health coaches, being able to get counseling is something that is mandatory for everyone to sharpen up their vision.
Yeah.
It's mandatory. And if people want to contact me, my email is a long one. It's cmiller@rossaddictions with an S counseling.com. And the number is 703-224-8929. I'm working on some social medias. So I don't have any of that stuff because I don't like putting people's business out socially. So those are 2 good ways to get in contact with me.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, Shandiggy. We're going to have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, so that everybody can follow up with you and get a hold of you. I love that last point that you left us with. I think there's such a misconception around things that we think are quote unquote gospel, and this is the truth and this is what it is. And we sometimes don't realize that that's keeping us from helping to solve the problems that need to be solved. So I appreciate you for, sharing with us, giving us that different perspective, and of course, arming us with the ability to be able to help out so many people. So thank you so much for what you do, your time, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Yes, indeed. You as well. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.